Let's go to Florida for our honeymoon, but how about we do it in 2 weeks?
2 months before our wedding, Warren suddenly came up with this idea. Reluctantly, I started to rearrange our plans. But then he dropped an even more astonishing idea.
Oh, right. I've decided to take my mom and her friend with us on our honeymoon. So yeah, please include that in the changes to the plan.
What? I was completely taken aback. Who brings their mother and her friend on their honeymoon? That's just not happening. A honeymoon with your mom and her friend tagging along? No way, Warren. At this, his mood suddenly turned sour.
What? You're trying to exclude my mom?
But it's our honeymoon. Isn't it normal for just the two of us to go?
My mom's lonely. It wouldn't hurt to take her along for the trip. You really are a cold-hearted wife, aren't you? Listen, the trip is a done deal. You arrange everything for 4 people, okay?
He turned away from me and went to the bedroom. At that moment, I was quietly seething with anger. The thought of my mother-in-law and her friend crashing our honeymoon, and my husband siding with her, was unbearable. If that's how they're going to play it, I have a plan of my own. And so I set my plan in motion, which would soon leave my foolish husband and mother-in-law in a state of utter shock and panic. My name is Kim, 28 years old. I'm skilled in crafts and have been working as a handmade artist since I was young. Now I even run a small craft class. Most of my students are women in their 50s and 60s who have finished raising their children. One of my students is a woman named Sandra. She's a cheerful person, well liked by everyone, and I like her too. One day, she said to me, "Kim, you're single, right? Do you have someone you're seeing?" "No, I've been too busy with work." "How about my friend's son? I've known him since he was little and he's quite the handsome guy. He's an insurance salesman." And that's how I was introduced to Warren, who would later become my husband. He was 2 years older than me, working as an insurance salesman. As Sandra had described, he was quite handsome and was pleasant to be with. I was taken with him. He seemed to like me too, and we started dating. 2 years later, he proposed to me.
Kim, marry me. I promise to make you happy.
Oh, Warren, thank you. I'm so happy. And so we got engaged. My parents approved of our marriage, and next, we went to his parents' house. His father greeted us with a smile.
Oh, I've heard all about you from Warren. It's great to meet you.
Behind him stood his mother, with a kind face. Warren introduced me to his parents.
This is Kim. We're getting married.
Howard nodded approvingly.
Yes, you have our blessing. Right, honey?
Warren's mother, Stacy, smiled and nodded. Of course. You two met through my friend, Sandra, right? She'll be thrilled to hear about your marriage. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Morgan. I was relieved that our marriage introduction went well. Stacy didn't talk much but seemed to approve of the marriage. Howard was a very nice person. We set up our new home just 10 minutes away from their house. The wedding was scheduled for 6 months later on our anniversary. Just when I was getting serious about the preparations, we received news that Howard had collapsed. By the time we got to the hospital, it was too late. He had passed away from heart failure. Stacy clung to her husband, weeping, and Warren comforted her. Remembering the kind father-in-law from our marriage meeting, I too was in tears. After the funeral, we decided to postpone our wedding for a year, as it was too soon. Concerned about his mother, Warren frequently visited her home, and I went with him to look after her.
Mom, we're back. How are you doing?
He asked his mother with concern. She replied in a faint voice, I'm still struggling to recover. I've been neglecting the housework. Indeed, unwashed dishes had piled up, and the housekeeping seemed neglected. Stacy, please rest. I'll take care of the housework. Thank you, Kim. And so for several months, I took care of her housework. I didn't mind it, as I sympathized with her loss. However, she gradually became more demanding. Kim, I meant to tell you earlier, but you're folding the laundry wrong. Oh? I want the towels folded like this. Oh, and can you wash the curtains too? For dinner tonight, let's have some meat. Okay. 6 months after her husband's passing, her complexion had improved, and she seemed to be regaining her energy. Yet she kept finding more chores for me to do, and her requests were getting more demanding. On the way back, I spoke to Warren. Hey, your mom seems to be getting better, doesn't she?
Well, she's certainly improved since my dad passed away.
I think it might be time for me to stop doing the housework.
What? My mom's alone and struggling. Helping out with the housework is the least you can do. She's my mother, you know?
Oh, right. Since he felt this way, I continued to go to his mother's house and do her housework, but we had our own things to take care of. Since our wedding had been postponed, we had to start looking for a new venue. The original venue was unavailable on the date we wanted because another wedding was scheduled. On the day Warren and I were visiting various venues, he took a different route in his car. Wait, shouldn't we have gone straight to the venue?
Yeah, I decided to bring Mom along.
What? Your mom is coming with us to check out the venues?
She wanted to come, so I couldn't say no.
When we got to her house, Stacy got into the car with a big smile. In front of her, all I could do was force a smile. The venue hunting didn't go well after that. Wow, this place is lovely. I've always dreamed of having a cozy, intimate wedding at a venue like this. To this, Stacy frowned. No, this place is too plain. It's not suitable for Warren's wedding. Let's look at other places. After that, she kept criticizing our choices of venues. In the end, we couldn't decide on a venue that day. That night, I told my husband. I'd prefer if we could pick out the venue, just the two of us. It's hard to decide with your mom there.
What? Are you trying to exclude her?
It's not like that. It's just that it's our wedding, and I want us to decide together.
Kim, you're so cold-hearted. She's the only family I have left. Of course, she's excited about my wedding. You should listen to her opinion too.
I can't believe this. Since his father's passing, Warren had become overly protective of his mother. He was always on her side, hardly considering my opinions. I continued to do chores for her, and my opinions on our wedding preparations were constantly overruled. The stress kept building up, and I couldn't hide my exhaustion. Then, during a rare visit to my craft class, Sandra, my mother-in-law's friend, noticed my state. Kim, you look tired. Are you okay? Sandra, yes, I'm fine. Just managing, you know. Really? Well, if you say so. I returned her concern with a weak smile. At that time, I was feeling desperate. The wedding was 3 months away, but we were struggling to save enough money. The amount Warren was putting into our joint account was less than he had told me before. One day, I asked him about it. Hey, Warren, the money coming in is less than what you mentioned. Why is that? He avoided my gaze, looking uneasy.
That's because I've been sending money to Mom.
What? You're sending her money? I didn't know about this. How much?
$700 a month.
$700? I was shocked. We had never discussed this.
I have to. Dad's gone and Mom has never worked.
He got defensive before I could say more. It was always mom with him. I wondered if I could really have a future with him. I was concerned. With only 2 months left until the wedding, he suddenly said to me,
"About our honeymoon in Florida? Let's go in 2 weeks.
"What? But we haven't even had our wedding yet. Aren't we supposed to go on our honeymoon after the ceremony?" He looked puzzled at my surprise.
I couldn't find any other time that worked, so we have to do it then.
You couldn't get time off? Well, if that's the case, I guess I'll have to change the travel plans. As I took out my phone to make changes, he dropped a bombshell.
All right. I've decided to take my mom and her friend with us on the honeymoon. Please include that in the new plan.
What? I was absolutely stunned. Who brings their mother and her friend on a honeymoon? Wait, what do you mean? Your mom and her friend are coming too?
The friend is Sandra, the one who introduced us. My mom mentioned the trip, and she wanted to come.
Sandra was a sensible person. If she knew it was our honeymoon, she wouldn't come. That meant my mother-in-law must have left out that detail. That's just not happening. A honeymoon with your mom and her friend? Unbelievable. He suddenly looked annoyed.
What? You want to exclude my mom?
But it's our honeymoon. Isn't it normal for just us to go?
My mom is lonely. It wouldn't hurt to take her on the trip. You really are a cold-hearted wife, aren't you? Listen, the trip is a done deal. You arrange everything for 4 people, okay?
He turned away and went to the bedroom. I was quietly furious. The thought of my mother-in-law and her friend crashing our honeymoon, and my husband siding with her, was unbearable. If that's how they're going to play it, I have a plan of my own. And so, I hashed a plan. On the day of the trip, Warren, his mother, and I were heading to the airport. We were supposed to meet Sandra there. Stacy was in high spirits, chattering nonstop. Warren was smiling too. Sitting beside them, I smirked to myself. As we were in the airport lobby, Sandra approached us. "Sorry I'm late. Thanks for inviting me today. Now that everyone's here, let's go." As she was about to move, I quickly spoke up. "All right, have a great trip." "What?" The 3 of them looked at me in shock. I handed them 2 plane tickets. They were in Warren and Sandra's names. Stacy, puzzled, spoke up. "Have a great trip? What are you talking about? And what's with these tickets? There's only for Warren and Sandra." I answered firmly. Yes, I only booked tickets for Warren and Sandra. "What?" All 3 of them looked at me in shock.
Hey, Kim, what's this joke? What about my mom's ticket? And what about you?
I'll be taking a different flight to my parents' house to tell them that the engagement has been called off.
What?
Once again, their eyes widened in surprise. Sandra hurriedly spoke to me. "Wait a minute. What's going on here? Why would you do this and call off the engagement?" So I told her, "Sandra, did you know today was supposed to be my honeymoon with Warren?" "What? No way, I didn't know that." She looked shocked, and I calmly explained. Actually, I've been forced to do housework by Stacy, and she's been interfering with our wedding plans. I've been tolerating it until today. But when I found out Warren was secretly sending $700 a month to his mother... What? $700 a month? That was the last straw for me, especially when I heard about this honeymoon plan with his mom and you. That's why I decided to take this action. She looked dumbfounded at my mother-in-law. Stacy turned red and lashed out. "How dare you? You're just a daughter-in-law, and calling off the engagement? I won't allow such selfish behavior." Then Sandra spoke up. "Stacy, weren't you bragging to everyone that your son gives you $350 a month?" My show-off mother-in-law had been telling everyone about that, apparently. I was just dumbfounded. Sandra continued relentlessly. "While we're at it, I've heard you've been seen walking arm in arm with a young flashy man in the neighborhood. You're not spending Warren's money on him, are you?"
What? A young man?
Warren was the first to react with astonishment. Seemingly defeated, Stacy started to stomp her feet in frustration. I can't help it. I've been lonely since I became alone. Sandra spoke to her admonishingly. Look, it's not normal for a mother to overwork her daughter-in-law, interfere in her son's marriage, and then crash their honeymoon. I'm going to distance myself from you, Stacy. No, if I'm disliked by you, the neighborhood leader, then... My mother-in-law tried to reconcile, but Sandra turned away.
Mom, you're using the money I gave you on escort services?
He confronted her, and she started stammering in a panic. Then Warren turned to me, lowering his head.
Kim, I'm sorry. I won't let my mom bother you anymore, so please reconsider calling off the engagement. Please.
Hearing him, I snapped. After all this time siding with your mom, you have the nerve to say that. I'm done with a mama's boy like you. I'll make sure you pay for the wedding cancellation fees. Be ready for that.
No.
I threw my engagement ring at him right there. Stacy stood there in shock, watching everything unfold. Warren ended up being responsible for the wedding and trip cancellation fees. However, having given most of his savings to his mother, he was now nearly broke. After I left, he became unruly, often late or absent from work, and eventually got fired. Jobless, he moved back to his mother's house. But due to his mother spending the inheritance on her escort, they were living a difficult life. Stacy became a recluse after Sandra spread rumors about her, unable to even find work. Now, they are on the brink of having to sell their family home. Hearing this, I can only think, they got what they deserved. As for me, I've started living alone after breaking off the engagement. My craft class is doing well, and after starting to post my work on social media, I was even approached by a publisher to write a book. This has led to a significant increase in my students, and I'm not struggling financially. Sandra apologized for her role in the situation, but we continue to have a good teacher-student relationship. I'm determined to keep working hard and live my life happily.